Natty or not? Guys, where do we draw the line? And this is a topic that I've wanted to go into for a long time because being that it is now 2025 and there are so many different things coming out on the market, things like peptides, SARMs, like it's crazy because in the natural bodybuilding industry there are so many different things that you can do to work your way around the lines and kind of play in that gray area. But with that being said, one of the things that I wanted to go into is what does natural actually mean in 2025? Um, and the reality, guys, of that is that everybody wants elite results, right? That's very straightforward. Everybody wants to optimize at the highest level. But where is that point where it's ethical? Where is that point where you're allowed to compete in drug tested organizations and things like that? So, in this episode, we're going to break down exactly what is truly natural, what's not, and how we can optimize our body to the highest level without crossing that line. So, with that being said, the very first thing that I wanted to talk about was my personal journey, guys. If you've been following me, you guys know I started as a 19-year-old kid lifting, going to the gym. I was a freshman in college when I very first started lifting. And basically what had ended up happening was I was going to school for pre-med, right? So I was learning the biochemistry and like the things behind the scenes of what happens in terms of body composition when you are lifting and, being active and that type of stuff. At the time, bodybuilding to me was really, it was intriguing, and I loved the idea of putting on muscle mass, losing body fat, and ultimately just like looking good. And it became like, I mean, for me, not to get too deep, but it was a very stressful time in my life. And so I loved spending time in the gym and being able to study and understand the body and like what was going on behind the scenes, right? During that time, from 19 to about 21, 22 years old, I went from 140 pounds all the way up to 210 pounds in my off season. And so during that time, like I would say I probably put on 30 to like 50 pounds of muscle mass. And now when I diet down and go into shows and things like that, now that I'm a professional natural bodybuilder, I step on stage at about 175 pounds, sub 5% body fat. So I have put on quite a few pounds of muscle 100% naturally. Yes, it's taken me years and that type of stuff, but those are my credentials. So I do know what I'm talking about. But there's so much that is going on now with the industry. And why this question matters, natty or not, or, what is considered natty versus what is not, is there's so many half-natty influencers that kind of blur the line. They, stay in that gray area where they're like using the peptides or whatever the thing is. And then, they post their picture on social media and they're 6% body fat or whatever, and everybody wants to look like them. So with that being said, it's like we got to go back to what is attainable naturally, right? What is considered natural, what is not, and ultimately just learn how to navigate the world of, performance enhancing drugs, especially being a natural bodybuilder that wants to optimize at the highest level, if that makes sense. So first things first, very straightforward, very simple. What is considered natural? And guys, it's very simple, right? Legal over-the-counter substances. So things like creatine, protein powder, vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, herbal supplements, and natural testosterone boosters. Where it becomes, and to go in more depth of that, a lot of people will say that natural testosterone boosters don't work or they don't do anything, which in my opinion is complete BS. And we'll get into that later. But so those are considered 100% natural. There's nothing that, that it's more about supplementing and giving your body what it needs in order to function optimally versus just adding something in that is exogenous like testosterone or something along those lines. So where it becomes not natural, right, is exogenous hormones or synthetic hormones, things like that, prescription medicines or banned diuretics, and injections of any kind. And now that one's kind of an interesting one for me. Um, as I was doing my research, technically it said that that falls on the unnatural side. However, with peptides, those are subcutaneous injections, so that's one of those gray areas. So, what is clearly not natural, right? We have steroids, so testosterone, tren, deca, anything along those lines. SARMs, very straightforward. Prescription diuretics, so any diuretics, and for context, diuretics are widely used in the bodybuilding community to help dry you out and make you look more lean than you actually are. So those are like extremely what's the word? They're extremely abused in the bodybuilding industry. Synthol, so any oils, anything like that. Obviously, you guys have seen the guys that inject synthol in their arms, and next thing you know, their arms 35 inches. And then hormonal prescriptions. So the thing with that is that starts to target things like TRT, right? And even though TRT does have like a therapeutic response, and they're keeping dosages a whole lot lower, it's still not considered natural, especially by WADA regulations, which WADA is the World Anti-Doping Agency. So that's the agency that oversees the drug testing for the Olympics and natural bodybuilding and all of the other sports. So when you talk about like Olympic level sports, WADA is like the standard. The gray area. And this is where it gets controversial, guys, because everybody's going to have their own opinions on this, because it's like, as a natural bodybuilder, obviously the goal is to have your best physique, and you're going to be willing to push the envelope to make that happen, right? So if there is something in the gray area that may be accepted but like could be banned, it's like a lot of the time people are hopping on that. So peptides, guys, peptides are one of the main topics when we think about the gray area, blurring the lines between like natty and not, right? With that being said, peptides, I mean, technically they haven't been shown, like if you do research and look up peptides, technically they haven't really been shown to even do anything like scientifically, which is really interesting to me. But as I was doing my research, that's what I found. However, like I've seen the results of peptides. I've seen people, hopping on retatrutide and losing 20, 25 pounds in the matter of weeks. So there's no debate whether it works. It's just simply that peptides they're amino acids. So technically it's like a broken down protein. So there's really like nothing that anyone can do to ban them, especially in terms of like drug testing and like those type of things, because there's not really a drug test yet that has even been built to be able to test those. So anyways, peptides I would say are in the gray area for now. Myostatin inhibitors. So myostatin and activin A inhibitors are very interesting. These are the things that it's a very, very new science. And basically what happens in the muscle is, most of the time, like when you're training, what will happen is the muscle will grow to a certain point, and then your body will turn on myostatin in order to stop infinite muscle growth, right? So the way that we overcome that and continuously put on more and more muscle is by inhibiting myostatin and activin A. Now, this is some very in-depth biochemistry, and we will go into that another day. But myostatin inhibitors, theoretically, they inhibit your body's ability to stop the muscle building process. And so with that being said, theoretically, you should be able to gain muscle infinitely once you fully inhibit myostatin, until something bad happens, like your heart explodes, or because your heart is a muscle. So that that is one of the limiting factors there. But with that being said, there are both natural and pharmaceutical grade myostatin and activin A inhibitors that are being researched right now. I just saw, I was just looking at a study that was following a few of the pharmaceutical grade ones. And the crazy part about myostatin inhibitors is they literally will they will completely get rid of the need for any anabolic steroids. Like once you are able to inhibit myostatin, then any anabolics will be like outdated, which is completely insane to think that that's even a possibility, but it is right around the corner. With that being said, that is prescription myostatin and activin A inhibitors. With natural myostatin and activin A inhibitors, there is a lot of research supporting one called, I don't know exactly how you would say this, but it's epicachin. Yeah, epicachin. That's how I'll say it. We'll roll with that. So epicachin is found in cacao and green tea. Now, what they've done is they isolated it, they've condensed it, and they now sell it as a pill that you can take on a day-to-day basis. And theoretically, this should help your body put on a crazy amount of muscle mass by simply inhibiting myostatin and activin. So guys, those are a very gray area. However, what I would say with myostatin and activin A inhibitors is, in my opinion, right, like where I like to draw the line is pharmaceutical grade would be non-natural, whereas if you're just taking epicachin, which is the one that's in cocoa and green tea, then you should be good, right? Technically, it's natural because it's from a plant, so we can use it. Over-the-counter test boosters. This one's very controversial because it's like people love to say that either test boosters don't do anything or that they're unnatural. But the reality is the majority of testosterone boosters are just an herbal blend of, whatever herbs, whether it's like tonka ali, ashwagandha, or whatever. And then some vitamins. So it's technically kind of like a multivitamin for men that helps the natural production of testosterone. I myself am a huge fan of testosterone boosters in general. There's so many that you can take, but I like to we'll get into that in the next little bit, but there are so many that you can take, and I am a huge fan of those. I've taken my blood work before and after, and it's pretty obvious and apparent that they do help boost your natural testosterone levels. And I've even seen my natural testosterone levels as low as like 200 nanograms per deciliter, and I've seen it as high as 1,029 nanograms per deciliter. So, the next one is any supplements that mimic hormonal response. So this is exogenous testosterone, right? In essence, or testosterone tablets, creams, like anything like that, in my opinion, is 100% banned, off limits, because that stuff will pop on a WADA test if you take a urine test or they take a urine sample and try it. So with that being said, those are kind of the things that are in the gray area. Where I stand on a lot of this, we kind of went over it, but my philosophy on that is we are here to push the lines of what is considered natural. So a lot of the time, the things that are in the gray area, as long as there's not crazy side effects to them, and as long as there's not crazy side effects and you're not going to pop on a WADA test, I would say they're fair game until they are banned by WADA. Once they're banned by WADA, then obviously you got to stay away from them in order to continue bodybuilding and, being able to hop on stage and like that type of thing ethically. So, it's just kind of that trade-off that you have to have as a natural bodybuilder is like, I'm going to push the envelope to the best of my abilities and use what is available to me until I'm told that I cannot. And so anyways, with that being said, the answer to elite natural optimization. So how do we optimize at the highest level and, raise testosterone, do all the things that we know we need to do, get, you know, so that we are able to pack on as much muscle mass as possible. In my opinion, what we've been using is I have a connection with a lab, and we use a program that's called Nutrients RX. Nutrients RX, in essence, is we take blood work, and in the blood work, it tests for vitamin levels, vital organ function, and hormone levels. The cool part about that is those three things all play off of each other, right? So, like, for example, if your testosterone's low, the best thing that you can possibly do is go back and look at, like, okay, how are vitamin D levels? How's vitamin B levels? And like those type of things, so that you can supplement directly and remove that bottleneck that's keeping your testosterone lower. So what I've done over the last, we'll say 18 months, nearly 2 years now, is I get my blood work done quarterly. So every 90 days. We take my blood work, look at testosterone levels, we tweak my custom pack so that I'm getting exactly the nutrients that I need, and then we'll look at testosterone levels 90 days later, and it's been very, very apparent. Like, when I started this program, I think my testosterone levels were about like 600. And then the next one was like 800. Then it went to 900. And then finally I got it up to 1,029, which I've heard is like the highest that our guy has seen in a natural bodybuilder in like 30 years. So kind of crazy. However, when you look at bottlenecks in terms of muscle growth and fat loss, right? The main thing that's going to have a huge, huge, huge effect on that situation, right? Body recomposition, is your testosterone levels. So I don't need to sell you on why testosterone levels should be high, but what typically happens is when you go into a bulk, right, your body can only put on as much muscle mass as it can recover, right? We're putting on muscle mass as we recover. And so your body needs testosterone in order to appropriately recover. But then also when you're cutting, you're putting so much stress on your body and limiting your body's ability to recover and produce testosterone. And so you end up losing muscle mass, slowing your metabolism down, and then it gets harder to lose fat. So keeping testosterone high year round, whether you're bulking or cutting, is going to help infinitely. So just trust me on that. But guys, takeaways. So the thing that we really, really, really need to focus on more than anything is optimizing without compromising. You don't need gear. You don't need like exogenous steroids, especially if you are a younger male. And your natural testosterone will like basically just go up if you just have a good workout routine, take your vitamins, get sleep, like reduce stress, and those type of things. What you need is data, strategy, and consistency more than anything. What most people are doing is they never take blood work. They don't know where they're at. They know they just want to get big, and so they go and they hop on something right away, which is definitely not the best way to do it. So anyways, guys, that is my opinion on the natty or not. If you guys have any questions, as always, follow me, subscribe, and send me a message. We're going to continue doing these. Let me know in the comments if you like these types of videos. I like going really, really in depth on the natural, fitness stuff. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.